Hello, it's Mr. Patriarch. Thanks for joining me today. So today we're doing something a little bit differently. This is going to be kind of a bit of a call-in stream. So I have pinned the link in the comments on this video to join. There's a StreamYard link. Also on my channel posts, on the most recent one, I have a pinned comment on my most recent post to call in if you'd like. And yeah, today's just going to be a light discussion opening with a monologue. We'll see how long this goes. If we get people calling in, might keep it going. If not, yeah, I'll just keep it down to maybe about half hour or so. So anyways, thanks for joining me. It is technically spring, although up here where I am at the cabin, it's about 15 degrees, overcast. It was snowing and a little bit windy. So I'm not feeling the spring very much, to be honest. Hopefully that'll change. Fortunately, where I live further down south, I don't know, maybe about 2.5 hours south, spring is in kind of full force. So that's good. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Happy you're here. Glad you're here. And for all my non-Orthodox friends, happy Easter. So hope you guys had a blessed Easter, enjoyed it with family, went to church and all that stuff, and yeah, had a really good time. I know that some friends of the channel have been confirmed into or received into the Catholic Church. Friend of the channel, Grant, I believe, has been baptized, or I don't know if he was baptized, but received into the Catholic Church. Congratulations, man. Also, my friend, what's his name? This is really embarrassing. Matthew from King Pilled, yes. Him and his family were received into the Orthodox Church, I believe, yesterday on Good Friday. So this is great. Now we're going into Holy Week in the Orthodox Church. So this is the week before Lent's over. Now it's Holy Week, and we got to make it through, stay strong, and enjoy the fast as good as you can. Attend as many services as you can, and then we're going to make it to Pascha. So very much looking forward to it. I enjoyed it last year. My son, I took him, and he really liked. At the time, he was not quite 3 years old yet, and yeah, he was a big fan of the candles and the ambiance, and yeah, he had a good time, and I had fun watching him. So yeah, that's it. It's the most holy time of the year in Christendom, and yeah, take advantage of it, guys. Really, really do. So today, what I'd like to springboard this discussion is something a little bit light. I'm going to start off with some polls that I shared. I'm going to go to screen share. Hope it works. See if I can't share that. There we go. All right. I think you guys should be able to see my Twitter page. So what we see here is I did a number of lighthearted polls on my Twitter. So I had a dissident right, would you rather, in 4 different polls. So the first one was DR, would you rather, pagan edition. And we had, would you rather play Dungeons and Dragons with Varg, go fishing with Frody, have a barbecue with Mike from Imperium Press, or shoot guns with Dave Martell. So in this poll, it looks like Mike from Imperium Press clearly won out by a significant margin. For those who don't know, he's the guy who publishes a lot of really interesting dissident right work, and republishes a lot of old classics. So like De Maistre, other people like that. And he's also published, I believe, The Populist Delusion from my good friend, Academic Agent. So he's a good dude, although his religious views I find somewhat farcical. That aside, he's a good guy. On second place, we have Boglord Dave. So I first came across this guy when he was having a debate with Jay Dyer, actually, on paganism versus orthodoxy. And yeah, in my opinion, Dave Martell was very much up against the wall trying to make a case for his Nordic religion, and trying to give an account for everything. And this is a very common thing that you see with a lot of pagans, is that their thirst for particularity and basically worship of ethnos makes their ability to make any sort of universal truth claims kind of impossible. So it ends up being this weird, how would you describe it? Kind of syncretic thing of revitalizing pagan beliefs, but in a very postmodern sort of sense, where truth is kind of eroded, and it's very odd. So yeah, but that aside, he seems like a really cool guy. Seems like a really fun guy to hang out with, actually. Wouldn't mind meeting him if I ever got the chance. But yeah, Dave Martell, Bog Lord Dave, as I call him. Third place, we have the notorious Varg Vikernes of Burzum fame and church burning in Norway notoriety in the 90s, allegedly, and murdering Euronymous from, I believe, Mayhem. Varg claims in self-defense, which I don't particularly have a reason to doubt. I don't think, I mean, Varg seems a bit like a loose cannon, but I wouldn't say an impulsive murderer. So yeah, Varg's kind of become a little bit of a, I don't know what you'd call him, kind of a bit of a meme, really. He is, after his release from incarceration, he kept making music for a time, and now he stopped. And his big passion is Dungeons and Dragons, or I'm sorry, not Dungeons and Dragons, but role-playing board games, actually. So he made his own RPG, apparently, which he's very proud of. And he's also released some compiled some literature on paganism. Interesting guy, lives in France, does homesteading there. Is married and has a ton of kids, evidently. But yeah, that's Varg. So a little more hostile than the other characters, I would hazard, but you enjoy him for the meme value. Last, we have Frody. Now, Frody's kind of cool for me because he does these really cool, what's this series called? Guide to Culture with a K. And they're basically media analysis. And he'll have on lots of interesting guests to discuss particularly film. And the most notable one that I remember is he actually had E. Michael Jones on to discuss the movie Sallow. And that was actually a really interesting discussion. And I think E. Michael Jones's take on the film, I have not seen it. I don't think I will see it. A little too hardcore for me. But E. Michael Jones's take on the film was basically that the director, because there's all sorts of, shit-lib takes on Sallow, that it's, a critique of fascism and authoritarianism. But EMJ's take on the film, actually, which I think is the most coherent, was that what was actually being done with Sallow was that it was a critique of pure sexual gratification and indulgence for its own sake, right? So the director was actually wrote Sallow as a as a warning against pure hedonism and using people as sexual objects, and sort of how that can result in chaos and degradation and death, essentially, which I thought was a very interesting read on the film. So yeah, that's Frody. Now we're going up to the Catholics now. Whee! So DR Would You Rather Catholic Edition. So this one will go from the bottom to the top. So first, go to a ballet with E. Michael Jones. Why the ballet? Because I believe his daughter, at least for a time, I don't know if she is anymore, was a professional ballerina. And yeah, so the love of the art of dance, at least in the Jones household, seems to be a thing. And yeah, so that's why I chose the ballet. I'm not sure if a lot of people got that, but yeah, poor EMJ only got 9.2% of the vote. Next, number 2, bully Nick Fuentes at his own event. So Groip the Groiper was basically the option. I make no bones about it. I do not like Nick Fuentes. He just doesn't seem like a serious person at all. Very, I don't know. He has rhetorical talent for a certain audience, namely Zoomers and some millennials, perhaps. But I just can't. I've just never liked his stuff. It's not for me. But aside from his content not being for me, I think he's actively counterproductive. And the most recent example of this is his disastrous partnership with Milo Yiannopoulos for Yay 2024. A real joke. And then sort of in the aftermath of that, he just, I don't know what he does. As far as I can tell, like, he basically just calls everyone he doesn't like a Jew and, you know, shit posts to his Zoomer audience. So yeah, not a fan. Number 3, although that did seem to be the second most popular option. So I guess a lot of people don't like Nick Fuentes among my listeners. Number 3, visit a good taco truck with Pedro Gonzalez. That one actually sounds like fun. Because visiting a good taco truck sounds like a good choice at any time. And Pedro Gonzalez seems like a cool dude. Passes the friend-enemy distinction, I think. And I respect him for his affiliation with my man, Paul Gottfried. So, yeah, very, he's doing good work, I would say. And he's about the most edgy right-wing guy that you'll find as a guest on cable TV. He does appear on Tucker Carlson, for example. And the fact that somebody of Pedro's, persuasion worldview would be able to get an audience like that is, I think, noteworthy. Last one, winning by a crushing victory. Stop the count, watch out for fortification. John D. Take an art class under John D. 52.2%, a crushing victory for Mr. D, which I'm happy to see. Mr. D is a good guy, good acquaintance, a friend, you might say. And yeah, he won this. A lot of people apparently want to take an art class with John D, which I think would be fun. I think that would be very fun. I myself would probably choose this option. I don't know anything about art except for music, and having an art class under John D would probably be a lot of fun, whether it's like art history or technique. I guess for the pagan edition, I don't know. What would I choose? I I'd probably shoot guns with Dave Martell. That would be my choice. So if you're in the chat and you want to vote and you haven't voted, just put in your number. 1 for Varg, 2 for Frody, 3 for Mike, 4 for Dave Martell. So you can choose there. Same here for the Catholic edition. 1 for EMJ, 2 for Fuentes, 3 for Gonzalez, 4 for John D. All right, moving up. Orthodox edition. So this one was the biggest sweep by a long ways. Prudentialist won the poll. So number 1 option was play in a cover band with Brother Augustine, aka Michael Witkoff, author of On the Masons and Their Lies. Really cool guy. I've had multiple streams with him in the past. He's taken a bit of a break from social media during the Lenten period, like many people, which I think is a good choice. And yeah, he's also made some music. Him and I like a lot of the same music. And if I was to vote in this poll, which I didn't, I would go with playing in a cover band with Brother Augustine. I love playing music live. It's tons of fun. And I think I'd have a blast doing it with Brother Augustine. So sad to see 8.2% of people only voted for Brother Augustine, but I'm with you guys. That would have been my choice too. Second place winner, bird watching with Roosh V. That also would probably be a nice, relaxing way to spend a morning or afternoon. I could see myself doing that. Yeah, that would be good. Number 3, refuse to debate and then attempt stand-up comedy with Jay Dyer. Yeah, so Jay is the sort of debate bro in Orthodox spheres. It's been interesting to sort of, as a observer, to see sort of the techniques and kind of highlighting the deficiencies of other worldviews. I think Jay's done a pretty good job of that, to be honest. I know he doesn't have I understand why people don't like him. And I'm not the hugest Jay Dyer fan, but I do think he does do valuable work in that regard. So yeah, he's also a bit of a goober, bit of a goofball. So hence the stand-up comedy thing. Number 4, Crawdad Boyle with Prudentialist. 62.7%. Big win, winning bigly. Yeah, I mean, a Crawdad Boyle is always a good time. So I'm not surprised to see that Prude won this one. I mean, I love crawdads, crayfish. I mean, it's delicious. All right, moving up. So yeah, you can vote for Brother Augustine Roosh or Jay Dyer or Prudentialist if you want. All right, DR, would you rather Protestant edition? Would you rather go on a Florida gator hunt with Aaron McIntyre, ranch cattle with Ryan Turnipseed, spend a day racing cars with the good old boys, or get a Chicago slice with Thomas 777? The winner is pretty clear. People would like to get a Chicago pizza with Thomas. Yeah, that would be probably a good time. Thomas is a funny character. He's very, he's got a very distinct style, let us just say. And it would seem, ridiculous and LARPy, except for the fact that it isn't. Like I'm not following Pre-Quinones. I guess I am now. But for him, it doesn't come off as corny. Like you can tell, like that's just sort of the way he is, and you can, enjoy it. Yeah. Florida gator hunt with Aaron McIntyre. I'd love to hunt gators. That would be a blast. That would probably be my choice. Yeah, that would be fun. Ranch cattle with Ryan Turnipseed. Of course, Ryan is an Oklahoman, and cattle ranching is a big deal over there. So that's that choice. Spend a day racing cars with good old boys. I mean, that just sounds like a blast. Sounds like a ton of fun. if it were my choice, I would, yeah, either go gator hunting with Auron or race cars with good old boys. So that would be my choice. All right, DR, would you rather? Atheist Agnostic Edition. The clear winner, number one, playing beach volleyball with Bronze Age pervert. Sounds like a good time. You could recreate that Top Gun beach volleyball scene with BAP. Sure, yeah, go for it. Number two, do slam poetry with Curtis Yarvin at a bunch of libs. So the idea is you go to a slam poetry thing and then you just turn the tables on them and use your mold bug poetry against the libs. Bit of an absurdist option, but some people picked it. I mean, it would be fun for the lulz. Number three, visit a Chinese buffet with Nick Land. This would have been my choice, not because I want to hang out with Nick Land so much, but the fact that I love Chinese buffets. I mean, they're delicious. I love Chinese buffets, and especially at this time of the year where I'm doing Lent. The idea of just getting knee deep in, General Tso's chicken and chow mein sounds fantastic. So, in the table conversation, it'd probably be fun. Number four, spend a day giving IQ tests with Edward Dutton. So this came in second place. Dutton does have his fans. He's an interesting guy. He's doing relatively unique work. He seems to be kind of, sort of, in terms of what his interests are, kind of an alt-right 1.0 sort of character. A lot of stuff on race realism. IQ tests, human biodiversity, stuff like that. It's a bit of an eccentric, but in a cool British sort of way. So yeah, I can see how that it would second place. But yeah, I'm more of a buffet guy, so that's what I would choose. So anyways, I guess that's about it. Happy to see that Mickey's malt liquor has not gone trans as well. So that's it for the light Twitter nonsense portion of this video. Again, if you'd like to join the conversation, which I would encourage you to do, it would be nice to talk to you guys, get to know you, get to know my audience a little bit more. The link is in the comments. I'll repost it again. Firefox is red, Explorer is blue, Google Plus sucks, and Chrome does too. Happy Easter to the Catholics and Protestants. Agreed. Welcome to Come On Man, if you'd like to join in the call-in stream. Likewise to you, Crusader 21. You're invited as well. Jacob, question I've been asking myself for the past few weeks. Oh, that must be in relation to the stream title. What do you want to do with your life? So for those who don't know where that image comes from, that is from the Twisted Sister music video. We're not going to take it. And there's this brilliant, hilarious part where the son's just rocking out in his room, and then the stodgy dad comes up and he's like, when I was a kid, I was carrying an M16 and you're carrying that electric 6-string guitar. What do you want to do with your life? And it's a really funny sort of over-the-top music video. But yeah, I thought I would actually use that as kind of a springboard for discussion if we get any callers, and I'm going to monologue on it for a little bit. But yeah, that is an important question. Crusader asking himself the same thing. What do you want to do with your life? Yeah. So I've thought about this quite a bit in my own existence over the past several years. And the thing is it's changed, right? So originally I thought, when I thought I was going to be in South Africa for a significant amount of time, my idea was that I would keep working my job that I had online and then really just kind of go all in on content creation and then just sort of see what happens. It was really fun at the time. It was kind of my main hobby at the time. I was putting out a lot more regular content. Sorry, guys. But I think, life changes. And then when I realized I wasn't going to be in South Africa, and as my wife was getting, pregnant with our second child, the amount of time that I had to devote to content creation took a nosedive. And the other thing too is that, I began to think, is this really the best use of my time? Not in, is it the best use of my time to make video, or not that it's in my best interest to quit making content. That's not what it was, but maybe dialing it back, realizing that for the good of my family, maybe I should put most of my efforts into other things like business, like spiritual life, etc. And yeah, there's definitely been a change there. Obviously, I came back to Alaska, restarted my career for the second time in 5 years, restarting my life over again, which is always exciting, but a little bit stressful and financially costly. But I think it was the right choice for my family. And then now, particularly since the beginning of last year, the spiritual life has really become more and more important to me. There's a link, by the way, guys, if you want it. And this is an interesting thing. So, which a lot of people, I don't think, whether they're coming into the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Church, whatever, it's one thing to be sort of convinced of the arguments and be drawn to the faith, let us say, and to have the satisfaction of, thinking you're right or whatever. And then it's a very different thing to actually be baptized, brought in, and then become an active participant in the holy mysteries of the church. That does have at least in my case, and I think in anyone's case who tries to conscientiously do it, that does have a very significant change on your life and sort of how you see things. It's not as it becomes much less academic and much more real in a way that is you can't really put into words. It is a profound change and shift in being fundamentally. And I noticed for my life a very big difference between trying to be a practicing non-denom evangelical. I'm just sending a message real quick. Okay. And participating with the sacraments in Orthodoxy. Baptism, of course, was a first step and a big one. And it really did sort of change how I really did sort of feel different after being baptized. I know that sounds maybe a little bit funny or whatever, but it did really kind of feel like a rebirth for me. And after that, the sacraments of the communion and especially confession were huge. And they've changed my life in some pretty fundamental ways. So like many men, I had struggled with pornography for some time in my life. And once I started, uh, partaking of the sacraments, particularly confession, all of a sudden it wasn't really nearly as difficult anymore. And this year, also with the fast, having the these other sacraments to help me, of confession, of communion. This is the first year I've ever actually sort of participated in the fast and tried to take it seriously. So, oh, I'm just seeing a private message. YouTube disabled the chat. What? That's weird. Okay. So, in any case, yeah, that's that. That is disabled for this live stream. I don't know why. That is weird. Why would YouTube disable the chat? Huh. Strange. In any case, so apparently YouTube classified your video as for children. What? Okay, hold on. I'm going back to the studio. Content, live stream. Let me make sure that's unchecked. Is your... Oh, no, it's not made for children. Okay. All right, I changed it. I don't know why I did that. Okay. So the chat should be coming back. If you guys can see the chat, let me know, please. Maybe hit refresh on your screens. Maybe it'll come back. Yeah, I mean, a live stream without the chat is a travesty. Let's go here. Let's check it out. This is very, very hot YouTube right now. Okay, the chat's back. Oh, sweet. Very good. Whoo! All right, there we go. Yay! Okay. So anyways, now with so the change in spiritual life has been very profound for me, and that sort of reorientated what I think I should sort of be doing with my life. And basically, right now, it's work, it's business. I'm planning on starting a business next year, and then hopefully getting rich, but not for my own sake. Basically, I want to help my church grow, and that's kind of where I'm at. Oh, we have a first caller in. Firefox, welcome to the stream, sir.
Sup, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. I was actually just in here to tell you that the chat was disabled, but I guess we could have a chat.
Sweet, man. So, are you from? Judging by your accent, do you hail from the Nordic regions?
I'm from the Netherlands. Yes.
Oh, okay, close. Very,
Close
very good. So, Firefox, I guess in this time of, let us say, spiritual reflection, what are you going to do with your life? What do you want to do with your life, Firefox?
What do I want to do with my life? That's a good question. I guess I have been asking people around about religion and stuff, so I might as well ask you the question too. What does the love of God mean to you, or God's love?
Huh. That is a good question. I guess for me, it's I think about it the easiest way for me to think about that is as a parent. So I think about, my kids and whatever, and how I love them, and even if they mess up, I still want them to repent, so to speak, and I want what's best for them, right? So even though they do have hardships, and through their own, hard-headedness, they'll make the wrong choices, and that will cause them to be hurt. But I'm always very happy to see them, succeed and get back on track. And then I think that's a good way to sort of try to, or a good lens through which to try to understand God's love for humanity. Like I really do think he thinks about us in a similar sort of way, where our success, uh, on the one hand, it or our deification, right, sort of becoming more godly, is a glory to God in it of itself, but sort of more than that, um, as the divine Father of all things, there's probably a certain happiness and joy that the Lord gets from sort of seeing his children living in accordance to the good, and that's sort of how I conceptualize it.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. And I guess that when people talk about fearing God, that it's kind of the same.
Yeah. So yeah, you fear God in the same way that you would sort of fear and respect the authority of, let's say, a strong father figure, right? So he's not a tyrant, but he is powerful, and he is sort of king over the household, right? And with God, it's kind of like that, but on a cosmic scale, right? So the majesty of God, of course, is infinitely greater, and his ability to judge and whatnot is kind of spooky. But on the other hand, you also know that he's just and loving. So the love aspect, he wants you to lead a good life and sort of ultimately commune with him and sort of be one with him in a similar way that a father does with his children. But also in terms of his judgment, it's just. So even if you fear the judgment, you know that if you get the short end of the stick, that basically you deserve it and it's your fault. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so how do you personally find peace with God? Or like if there's something you're going through, how do you find peace with God?
Yeah. So for me, I don't know. I've always had a pretty, I don't know if it's just because of my nature or my upbringing or both, but I've always had a pretty stoic attitude when it comes to such things. So being able to get through hardships or challenges or whatever, is just kind of, I don't want to say easy for me, but easier perhaps is the way I'd put it. And for one thing, like, I had a really good childhood growing up. I had a dad, who was there, who loved me, and my brothers, who provided for us. I had a mom who stayed at home, and she did the best that she could for us. And sort of having that, um, as a framework, I think helped me sort of realize that whatever happens is going to be okay. And then at a young age, I think I was about 10, my uncle died. So my mom's brother, he was only about, I think he was about 30 years old at the time. So he was my age now. Um, he died in a motorcycle accident. And that was kind of a very formative event for me in terms of thinking about, the afterlife and God, and why do certain bad things happen, and then sort of how to deal with them. And I think from that time, I was able to uh, basically reconcile with the fact that, unfortunately, suffering and loss is just kind of a part of life, and that bad things in this fallen world are to be expected, and they're going to happen even if you don't necessarily deserve it. And you just have to try to be faithful in those times of sorrow and loss or struggles or whatever, and just rely on God's grace to get you through the times, and eventually you'll land back on your feet, or if it's your time to go, it's your time, and that's all you can do. So yeah, for a long time, I've had a very kind of stoic attitude toward these sorts of things. It's just been kind of natural for me since that early age. And I don't want to say like, my life's been hard or anything. It really hasn't. But, I have had things like that, like my uncle dying. Um, Shortly after I got married, my wife got bone cancer. I had to quit my career and then get her through that. And then her dad died. And, it's just stuff that you don't really plan for, that are sort of like serious negative life events occur. And, throughout all of them, I'm like, yeah, this is just unfortunately part of life. And I get inspiration from the saints. A lot of these people went through some very tough times, real persecution, real loss. And, nevertheless, they persisted, and they were deified in a certain sense. And a lot of them died as martyrs, but the only reason we know about them today is because they went through that in the first place. So that's kind of, I guess, how I deal with that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that. But when I'm thinking like about stoicism, I'm really thinking about relying on the internal and not the external. So at the same, like this is what's confusing about God to me, because God is external, but He's also internal. So how do you kind of like work it out? Because I do like stoicism, for example, but I have a hard time kind of putting my problems onto God, like trusting Him with that, because I wouldn't do that with people either.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And there is a certain sense in which it is kind of up to you to a certain extent, to sort of deal with stuff. But the way I like to think about it is that it's not that, it's more of a, I look at it as sort of more of a partnership, right? So we're participating in sort of uh, God's divine energies, and accepting or rejecting his grace. So I don't necessarily believe in what the Calvinists might call irresistible grace. I think that it is a choice to a very large extent. And so there is a synergy that occurs between man and God's energies in terms of manifesting his will on earth. And you can either be a willing participant, or you can reject that, rather. And in terms of Stoicism as sort of a philosophy, I think it's basically good, but context in the right context. So if you adopt it more as sort of a mindset and a practical approach to dealing with issues, coupled with, um, the transcendent qualities of, your spiritual relationship with God, I think that's sort of the right balance. So I'm not really shooting for sort of a dialectic between the two. It's kind of both, if that sort of makes sense. So it's not Stoicism versus God's love and grace. It's Stoicism and God's love and grace, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, kind of like a tool that you can use to, I don't know how to put it, just to stay functional on Earth or something.
Yeah. So Stoicism is like the tool, or a tool, right? And then God himself is basically being, like all being is the universe, humanity, the natural world, and the Orthodox conception are theophanies. So they are manifestations of, they're not God himself. So it's not like all is one man, but they are emanations, uh, related to but separate from God in a similar way that, like, a solar flare isn't the sun, but its source is the sun, if that makes sense. Um, and yeah, so you're, on the one hand, when you're participating in the spiritual life, you are reconciling yourself with reality in a very profound, real sense. And then Stoicism is basically a way of dealing with the fallen aspects of reality. So the effects of the fallen world. Stoicism, or a Stoic mindset, is basically a way of trying to deal with that, um, those those less than ideal aspects of living in the world that we live in today, which was brought about by man's disobedience and sin. But the Orthodox, I guess, I don't know if cosmology is the right word, but the Orthodox understanding of reality is that with Christ's resurrection, human nature itself was redeemed, and not just human nature, but all creation to a certain extent was redeemed through the resurrection. It was brought new life. So prior to the death and resurrection of Jesus, death was kind of the end. And it's not that the soul quit existing afterwards, but it didn't have life in the same sense that it does, or that it reclaimed after the resurrection. So in Judaism, you have this idea of Sheol, which is kind of like the underworld in Greek mythology, sort of this place of shades, and it's not exactly heaven, it's not exactly hell, it's this land of death. And after the resurrection, though, life continues on in a very real way that didn't exist prior. And the afterlife is a very real continuation of the present life. And then in the end, in the final judgment, the body is itself resurrected. So, oh, it looks like Firefox is Fallout. Oh, he got a blue screen. You hate to see it. Okay. If he comes back, that'll be cool. But good luck with the blue screen. So from the Improver, great username, by the way. Happy Easter, y'all. Mr. Patriarch, how's the great state of Alaska? It's a place I could potentially be up to move to, military. Wondering what you think of the state. Well, because you asked, I would say the great state of Alaska is the best state in the Union. And of course, I am somewhat biased. I was born and raised here. And unlike a lot of people who live in Alaska, I am I guess technically a fourth generation of Alaskan, which is kind of rare. So whatever my great grandparents liked about the state, my grandparents liked about it, my parents liked it, and I liked it. So that's kind of my attitude. Now, pluses about Alaska. On the one hand, it has the lowest taxes of any state in the US, which is very nice. There was a poll that was done of US states and European countries in terms of how much income the average person in these states and countries receives. And as I recall, number one was Luxembourg, number two was Monaco, I think. And then number three was actually Alaska. So Alaska is, in terms of how much money you have, one of the richest places in the world, if you can believe that. Also, I just love the natural beauty. There's a lot of pretty places in the world, but Alaska has a certain majesty about it that is very hard to find in other places. And you can find it in some spots like, I don't know, like Norway, maybe. But that sort of stark, grand, majestic quality is something that you don't find in a lot of other places. The massive blue snow-capped mountains and stuff like that. Vast tracts of wilderness. I love it. It's also an excellent state if you're a gun owner. Great place to fish. It's a very libertarian sort of society in a similar way that I think much of the Old West used to be. Like the whole idea of leave me alone is very strong up here in Alaska. You do have some progressives in like Juneau, which is the state capital. You have a bunch of functionaries, mostly from out of state, coming up here to work for the state government. And some of those people are in Anchorage as well, which, it's not ideal, but it's just a reality. But as a whole, it is a very, very nice place to live. And the hardest thing that you'll deal with is potentially the dark winters and the snow. So some people have a trouble with that, but if you're one of those guys who can deal with it, you'll probably love it up here. So that's it. All right, Firefox is back. Blue screen fixed.
Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem.
Where were we? Oh yeah, the resurrection. So how about the souls before Jesus died?
Yeah, so basically in the Orthodox understanding, so the souls before Jesus died, everybody basically went to the same kind of place with different experiences, but in a similar sort of environment. And a good example of this in the Bible is when you have the rich man and Lazarus. So they both die and they both go to a, Sheol, basically. But for the rich man, it's not exactly pleasant. Whereas Lazarus is, held in the bosom of Abraham. But they can talk to each other. They can see each other. They can communicate with each other. So it's not like they're entirely separate. There is a chasm which separates the two, but they are aware of each other in a way that I don't believe is analogous of heaven and hell. Now, in the Orthodox understanding, when Christ died, he literally went to Hades and preached the gospel. So his mission in, if you want to call it the underworld, was basically a reflection of his ministry on earth. And then those who accepted it basically ascended to heaven with him. So that is the Orthodox belief of sort of what happened to the souls after Jesus died, which I think is not necessarily contradicted by certain types of Christianity in the West, but it is definitely downplayed, I think. I think the Catholics might technically believe that, but I'm not sure. Also, the souls who weren't aware, so like you have some guy in China who dies like a year after, Pentecost, and he never had a chance to hear the gospel. What happens to that individual? We don't know. So it's not, so when the Bible says, judge not, that's basically what it's saying. We can't say for sure whether this guy went to heaven or hell, because judgment is ultimately reserved for God, in terms of the eternal reward of somebody. And how all we know is that how God deals with that person is going to be done in, a just way. in a way in which that they deserve. And there's a book from the Bible, it might be Romans, I'm not sure, where Paul is talking about sort of the Gentile non-believers, and he's saying, for the Christians, to whom much is given, much is required, and these people will be judged according to that aspect of the truth which they possess. So it's not entirely beyond the realm of possibility that, the guy in Papua New Guinea or the Chinese guy, who died building the Great Wall or whatever, would not be beyond salvation. God can save those people, but we don't know how that works or what it works. What we do know is this sort of normative way of salvation, which is through the church, and which all people are sort of, instructed to fall in alignment with, because that does sort of bring you in communion with God in a real sense, and is sort of the fullness of the truth, if that sort of makes sense. And in Orthodoxy as well, we're instructed to pray for the souls of the departed. So even if basically it's not over till it's over, and it's only over, like really over during the final judgment. So between now and then, as we pray for the departed, through our intercessions and the intercessions of the saints for the lost souls, they may receive mercy from God in the hereafter, even if they didn't necessarily live as a Christian. And I think there was a Russian saint a woman whose husband was like this alcoholic, no good sort of character. And then he died, and then she basically lived the rest of her life, in repentance for her husband and praying for him. And I think the miracle there was that through her prayers and her devotion to the Lord, God, by grace and mercy, granted salvation to the husband, I think. So that sort of thing can happen in the Orthodox worldview.
Okay, cool. I've got all out, so thank you for the conversation, and may God have mercy on us all, I suppose.
Likewise. Have a good one, man. And next time I'm going to have to try and speak some Afrikaans to you and see if we can't have a dialogue.
That sounds baie goeie.
Yeah. Baie goed. Yeah.
Baie goed.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good one, man.
All right. See ya.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in. That was cool. All right. If anyone else wants to join, I'm going to post it in the comment again. Beep. Brap. So you guys should see it now. Mr. Patriarch, StreamYard. There we go. There we go. Saint Xenia of St. Petersburg. That's who it was. Yes. A well-known saint in Russia. So I'm going to go through the comments here as this goes. Lobster, hey, sorry, I've not been on Twitter for the past few days. I was suspended for calling a feminist a hoe. Lol. Many such cases, Lobster. Again, if you want to come on, link to the StreamYard is in the comments or on my channel post. So I'd love to talk to you. We could reminisce about the great land if you want. Henry Parks, happy Holy Week to you and to my Christian friends. Happy Easter. Any tips for a bloke stuck in college wanting to escape? Should I just finish out my time or find some other occupation? Well, Henry Parks, I cannot give specific advice. Maybe you could come on the show and we could talk about it. That would be fun. I don't mind talking about college. That's what the stream is for. This is a platform for you guys tonight. So I guess it really depends. So for me, for example, from the time I was in high school, I had a pretty clear idea about what career I wanted to do. And that career required getting a college degree. So I got it out of necessity. The university I went to wasn't too bad. There wasn't like tons of woke stuff, but of course this was, more than a decade ago when I started going. So it might be worse now, probably. um, but yeah, I guess that sort of depends. And sort of on the theme of what do you want to do with your life, these sorts of things can change, right? So, like for me, I had an idea of what I wanted to do as a career, and then due to life circumstances, that had to change. And it changed a couple of times. So after I got my bachelor's, I was getting ready to start working on my master's, and then proceed on with my planned career. But then and then also before that, I almost joined the military. I was applying to the officer corps, and it took a long time, more than enlisted types. And then by the time they gave me an offer, I had sort of boned up on U.S. foreign policy, and then realized we were kind of the bad guys. And I didn't want to join when the offer, happened. So that was one thing that I didn't really plan for, but almost occurred. And then another thing is like I was saying, after I got my bachelor's, I had an opportunity to work in the oil industry. Just kind of happened out of nowhere. Didn't really plan for it. And it sounded like a fun adventure. I was working on the ocean, and it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, that job, along with about 10,000 other people's, went away when the project turned out not to be as successful as had been hoped. So that was my short stint in the oil industry, but I might have stayed there. And then I went back and finished my master's and was starting my career. And then that had to change due to life circumstances with my wife. And then it changed again when I came back to Alaska. So, and now, looking into the future, I'm finally, almost a decade later, not quite, sort of just starting what I originally planned on doing. Which, has a certain opportunity cost for, a late start, but it is what it is. But going on into the future, I don't know. Things might change. Like I said, I'm planning on starting a business with my brother, and it's going to be a seasonal business. So I'll keep doing. I think I can probably juggle the two of them, so it's not like something I'll be doing all year. So I can manage that with work, I think. But I've already decided if I ever get, canceled at my current career, that I'll probably just become a power lineman or something, and make six figures a year doing that. that's sort of my backup plan, is becoming a skilled tradesman. And yeah, that's an option that a lot of guys don't really consider. And I will say, if I compare most of the, what you would say, professional jobs, or kind of more white collar jobs that I've had, relative to sort of the blue collar work I've done, I've tended to enjoy the blue collar work more, if I'm perfectly honest. There's a certain satisfaction that you get when you work with your hands that's very hard to replicate with a lot of service jobs. And yeah, no, it's fun, and that's one of the reasons why I want to start this business with my brother. Is I'm very excited to do that sort of thing again. And there's a shortage of skilled tradespeople. So it's a seller's market in terms of labor for that sort of stuff. And I know up here in Alaska, at least, the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, recently changed their some of their laws, internal rules. And what happened is they basically can't get enough linemen or electricians there's just not enough of them. So if you have a company and you want to get like 6 guys for a job, you can't find them, which is a problem. But what the union did was they changed the rule now so that for the guys eyeing retirement, in order to cut down on the labor shortage, they're allowing them to withdraw their retirement and keep working. So you have a situation where, like, my dad was just talking to somebody last night. He just started drawing, 70 grand a year in retirement. And he's going to keep working as a power lineman, a journeyman power lineman, making, like 120 grand a year. So he's in the enviable situation of double dipping. So he's making, right around 200 grand a year in retirement and wages as a power lineman in Alaska, which is freaking awesome. I mean, that's awesome. So, but yeah, you can make really good money with the trades, and Alaska is a really good place to make money doing that. Like I said, lowest taxes in the U.S. Things are a lot more expensive, admittedly, but the increase in wages more than makes up for that relative to the rest of the United States, pretty much. And yeah, so might be for you. I don't know. Trades are fun, though. From Uric, it depends on what your major is and if the classes aren't meeting your expectations. Yeah. So if you're just going to college to go to college, I think that's dumb. Don't do that. So, I mean, I know some people who did that, and they're the sad case of the people who, work as baristas and whatever with like 50 grand in student loans and a philosophy degree. Like, you don't want to be that guy. If you genuinely feel stuck and aren't looking forward to it, then drop out for now and then finish a degree you won't use. Yep. Before you finish the degree you won't use. Yep. Reminder, if people want to jump on, here's the link. If we don't have anyone jump on, I'll probably cut this off here before too long. From Uric, all I want to do with my life at the moment is move out far away from where I am so that I can start making a new one for myself. Sounds interesting. And this is sort of, I wonder if I don't know. This is sort of related to what I talked about last week with home, but it seems like a lot of people aren't really satisfied with where they find themselves geographically, which is sad, but reflection of the times we lived in. From Henry, masculine urge at 3 a.m. to drop out and live like a hermit in the woods. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Where I am right now is kind of like that, but it's good. But I only come up here on the weekends, or about every other weekend. Is Alaska expensive to live in? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But like I said, there are other things to consider. So, for example, I'm just trying to think of certain professions where I know, like if you're a teacher in the state of Alaska, you make on average, I think 164% of the money that a teacher does nationwide. 164%. Okay. So we're talking about a lot more money than what you would make doing the same job in another state typically. And like I said, there's no state income tax, there's no state sales tax. And even though like things are more expensive, they are, no doubt about it. The thing is that the wage differential more than makes up for it. So let's say your cost of living is like 50% more expensive than, let's say, I don't know, another state, but you're not paying income taxes, or you're not paying state income taxes, you're not paying state sales tax. And even though things are 50% more expensive, you keep more of your money and you make 164%. So you're actually richer because of those things. Might consider becoming an electrician now. Yeah. Look into it. And this again, the numbers that I was talking about were for a power lineman, which is like industrial, municipal, residential electricity. So those are the guys who like, build the substations and the connect your houses up to the grid, stuff like that. So yeah, power linemen make really good money by anyone's estimation. And there's a shortage of them. And yeah, you'll be rolling in dough. And if you get accepted into an apprenticeship program, it's 4 years, and like a college degree by the time you get through it and you become a journeyman. But unlike college, you actually get paid the whole time. So I think you start off as a power lineman up here making 50% of, as an apprentice, first year apprentice, you start off making 50%, I think, or 60%. Yeah. So if it's 50%, you start off basically making like $31 an hour. And then all overtime is double time, not time and a half. And you get insurance. So, I mean, do the math. Like if you're, and it's very often like you'll be working overtime. So if you work 40 hours a week, oh yeah. And also anything over, so let's say you're working 410s as a power lineman up here. Anything above 10 hours on the day is double time. So as a journeyman power lineman in the state of Alaska, you will make $61 and some cents per hour. And then if you work 11 hours that day, that second hour, you make $123 for that 1 hour, basically. And then if you get called off the clock, if like, a tree goes down and pulls down a light pole, yeah, it's just all double time. It's all double time. So let's say you get called to fix this problem, you're making, $123 an hour the whole time, which is pretty awesome. And you got really good health insurance. You get tons of money going into retirement. It's a really cush gig, and you'll be working hard, but you're going to make a ton of money. So yeah, it's a good deal. And even like I said, as an apprentice, like you make pretty good money. So by the time it's over, I mean, you've got a job that you could go anywhere in the United States with, anywhere in the world, probably. Like, I mean, power linemen are in demand everywhere. And if you stay up here, like you'll make a very good living. Like, my dad, he's not a power lineman. He's a mechanic, but he does work for the IBEW and he does get paid at the same rate. And, he's done that for years. And, yeah, he's done that his whole career. My dad's always been a mechanic, and yeah, he provides for a family and, on one income doing that. And he likes what he does. He likes his coworkers. He's gets a lot of autonomy at his specific job. And he just keeps doing it because he likes it. Like he enjoys his work and the people he works with. So yeah, I mean, it's There are way worse fates. I mean, that to me that sounds way more fun than being an office drone. So Alaska sounds like the last free place on Earth, aside from holes like Somalia. Yeah, there are. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's still a pretty great place to live. I'm not gonna lie. Like compared to a lot of other places, it is quite free, um, and it's just yeah. I mean, it's home for me, and so even if it wasn't great, like I'd still probably be here because I feel tied to the land, man. It's a great place, and it's really nice. Also, I live in a country that has cheap college. Yep. Alaska too. The University of Alaska Fairbanks, if you do go to college up here and you're paying in-state tuition, is also quite cheap by national standards. And more than that, there was UAF, University of Alaska Fairbanks, is kind of an underappreciated institution. So, like in the state, it has the pedigree as like the place to go. But also, there was a survey done some years ago, and it was gauging which colleges on the West Coast have. So they'd track graduates and they'd see how much money they made after graduating. And the top three universities on the West Coast, number one was UC Berkeley, California, in terms of graduates making good bucks after graduating. Number two was University of Washington, Seattle. And then number three was actually the University of Alaska Fairbanks, which is significantly cheaper and easier to get into than these other places. But in terms of what you make on the back end after getting your degree, on average, right? This depends on the degree, but it's looking at all graduates. You're doing about not a whole lot worse than people from UC Berkeley or University of Washington, Seattle. So, yeah, it's if you are going to college, and a lot of the people who do go to UAF, they're going for a specific goal. Like they're very practical, career-oriented people. So if they go there, more so than maybe some other like liberal arts colleges and then wherever, they're going with an idea of what they want to do as a career, and they're going to college, university, because they want to do a career. So I think that's a bit of self-selection as well. But a Sparky job sounds great considering. Yep. Bit scared of heights. Yeah, you'll be up high sometimes as a power lineman, like a boom lift or go up a telephone pole or whatever. One of my younger brother friends became an AC technician at age 21 and already bought a house and a car. Maybe the trades is the way to go. My degree was a waste of time. Yeah, many such cases. I mean, my younger brother, he didn't go to college. He basically got out of high school and then he worked doing scaffolding for a while, and then seal coating, a little bit of construction. And now he's sort of like the foreman for a seal coating company. And then he also does other stuff like snow removal in the winter. And like I said, some carpentry and stuff. Never went to trade school or anything. This is just work experience stuff that he's done. And I want to say this year, doing that sort of stuff, he made, I don't know, maybe 75, 80 grand, which for like a 25-year-old who just graduated college, who just graduated high school is pretty good. I mean, he made more money than I did. So not bad. And yeah. Yo, Jay Ford. Just putting out the call one more time. If you guys want to hop on, join for a discussion, we could talk about careers. We could talk about how you're crushing. We could talk about different tracks you want to take, whatever. This is open platform to you guys. So we had Firefox on, talked about theology and stuff. That was good. Like to talk to one more person before I call it a day, but I'm enjoying this. This is cool. When does your album drop? I'm not sure I'm going to drop an album. I might at some point, but we'll just have to wait and see. Although I will say Chris Gard, if you guys know him, the Australian roofer. Now I'm just looking. Okay. Him and I are going to be doing a cover of a song together, which I'm very excited about. It's one of my favorite songs, "The Day I Tried to Live" by Soundgarden. So him and I are going to be doing that. We should be coming out, I don't know, in like a couple of weeks. And yeah, so I'll be sure to let you guys know when that's done. All right. So yeah, I guess I'll close with my final thoughts if anyone wants to hop in before I close. Oh, here we go. Jay Ford, welcome.
Hey, what's up, man? Can you hear me fine?
Can hear you good. How's it going?
Oh, it's going all right. I saw you were talking about career stuff and what you want to do with your life, and you wanted somebody to jump in. So I thought, what the heck? It's a nice Sunday, Palm Sunday. So I was just like, it's nice and lazy anyway. So I'd jump in on this.
Indeed, Palm Sunday. So are you? I take it you're an ortho bro then?
Well, I was participating in one. I'm really just more seeking, but that's tangential. It's the service I went to today.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, this I was not at church this Sunday because I decided to head up to the lake and celebrate the weekend with my parents. So the wife and kids aren't here, so it's just me and my folks. And yeah, I'm glad I came up. It's been a really good time. I always like coming up at the lake anyways. It's sort of our like what you'd call it, sort of family compound. And like my great grandpa, my grandpa built this place, and now it's my folks. And yeah, it's just a lot of good memories here. So, but I will be going to participating in services and whatnot for the rest of this week, and of course Pascha next Sunday. So,
but of course, but yeah, talking about.
Oh no, he must have got the blue screen. Crap. Hold out for him. We're just about ready to get into the juice. And no, not the juice. The juicy stuff. People with juice boxes in their usernames will be banned on site. Okay, here we go. You're back. Did you get the blue screen?
I hate mobiles so much. Whenever you're doing stuff on it, it closes out of stuff that you don't want to close out of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I was jumping on to talk about career stuff and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of guys, especially when they're first starting out, they're getting their jobs at 18 when they're first getting kicked out of the house. So I don't know how I can really tell people a lot of that. I saw people talking about comments such as starting in the trades and then not even going to college. And the funny thing is you can do a lot of white collar work, a lot of computer stuff. You don't need to get a college degree to do that. It's helpful because a lot of college campuses really are the recruiting grounds for a lot of stuff like that, especially if you're not going straight out of the military or something like that. But you can get jobs as entry level positions with only a single certificate, and then you can build off of that. I think we get caught in this binary between blue collar and white collared work, and college degree or not college degree, a lot when it comes to this sort of thing, especially in the dialogue online, because like there's no actual like exploration there of how you're going to earn your bread.
Yes. No, and I think you bring up a good point. So there's multiple ways to skin a cat, right? It's not just, and I think this is where thinking like an entrepreneur is helpful. Even if you don't necessarily want to start your own business, but thinking, how can I provide value? What's a way that I can provide value to people and then market myself to sort of get in what I want to do? And like what you're talking about with computer programming, I've heard that before. Like if you just go to some of these, or it's possible to learn to do stuff literally on your own and then sort of like create a portfolio of work that you can show, like, hey, I designed this, I did that. And you can literally just get hired by doing that, or getting certain certificates outside of a typical college program, or like a coding boot camp or whatever. Like there's multiple ways that you could get into some of these fields. And one of them that I thought about was like, if you wanted to be an accountant or whatever, like what's stopping an 18-year-old like high school graduate from just going to like an accounting office and being like, hey, I will literally work for free, just teach me how to do this stuff. And then you learn how to do it on the job for free. And it's no risk to them because, I mean, they don't have to pay you. But at the end of it, then you can take whatever licensing test or whatever that you need in order to do the job, right? But then the difference between that and like college is it's really kind of like they were like, oh, but you're not getting paid for it. I'm like, yeah, but in college you're paying to learn this stuff. This, like, yeah, you're working and not getting paid, but how's that? How is this not a better deal than like paying tens of thousands of dollars for the same thing? Like,
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. So, I mean, you've got sort of a combination of factors that really contribute to the uncertainty in the job market. So, like for instance, people are just like, "What? Just go into an office and like talk to somebody." That's silly. And most places, it's very hard to actually do that unless if you actually have like an in, or if you like know who like the hiring manager
yeah,
is or something like that. You can always look up a specific places, like see if there's like a roster online for like a specific business, whether or not they have got a hired manager or not. And then just like literally what it is just like, hey man, like I'm 18. What do you want to look like? I want to like, apprentice, or I want to intern at your job for a little bit. And that can be useful. But like there's various levels of like accreditation that like some jobs have that others don't. Like say if you're like a lawyer, or if you're working in a specific IT field, you're going to need a specific certificate just because that's the
right.
industry standard. And a lot of people like don't know what those like baseline industry standard certificates are. Well, they know about like the bar, and they know about like the LSAT, and stuff like that when it comes to entry into like big career fields. But for stuff like IT, you can start with something like the A plus from what is it, CompTIA. That's basically a basic computer repair course, and you could go and work at an electronic shop with that, or you could like work in an electronic shop, get that cert, and then get like certs that build off of it, because certificate vendors will always offer more stuff than just their basic cert. And like, I mean, it's really just an opportunity cost too, like you mentioned, because the opportunity cost of going to college, like I've essentially got free ride to college right now, but I'm not doing it because it's a massive opportunity cost for me. Like I would have to cut
Yeah.
my current earnings completely off in order to go and do that, which it's tempting, but at the same time, I hear that colleges have only gotten worse. So it's like,
Yeah. No, and that's the thing too. And which is, this is something I talked about a little bit earlier in the stream. Like for me and for some other people, like for the specific job or career that you want, some of them do require college degrees. So like if you want to be an engineer or, you know, a doctor or a teacher or something, like this is just part of the game that you have to do, unfortunately. But if you're just going to college to get a degree, to get a job, and it's like that vague, like what are you doing? You know, do you
Well,
prefer
yeah.
for exactly the same reason that you're saying, like the opportunity cost to, you know, sacrifice 4 years of your life, um, and not really have a plan or path or good pathway to make money on the back end is just, I mean, you're just crippling yourself. I mean, you're taking, you know, you got 4 years of foregone wages, at least, and particularly like these people who just sort of hang around in college and get their degree in like 5 or 6 years. I mean, that's even worse. Like, it's just totally counterproductive for, you know, getting yourself a good start early on because, like you say, I mean, there's the cost of the tuition itself. There's the potential debt, which you'll likely have. And then there's those 4 to 5 years of foregone wages that you could be making doing something. And it just ends up being in a very extremely expensive, you know, proposition. Like you could have easily bought a house in most parts of the country for, you know, once you factor in all of these different costs associated with, you know, attending a 4 year university. And again, for some people, it makes sense. And for some jobs, it's a requirement. But if it's not, and you can find a smarter way about, or smarter or atypical way of getting the same results, like, why wouldn't you do that?
Right. And the interesting thing is the people who hang around college, it's sort of like a little bit of a failure to gain momentum. Like a lot of people, they don't have jobs before they join college. So what college is really supposed to do then is get them the momentum there, you know, get them actively doing stuff, getting them, you know, applying for jobs, doing stuff like that. Like there's usually job programs in college itself. And the reason why they do that is they want to make sure that, you know, that you're employable at the end of it, but still people don't get it at the end of it. And it's interesting because like it just sort of touching on this like momentum thing is like people will um like literally not get a job, and like literally the first step in their career, if they're like a NEET, it shouldn't be like, oh, just go to college and do something like that. It's just like go to like a construction site and like work for 6 months, and then once you've thought, okay, well, I've got like money and I don't want to do this, you can pivot to like whatever you want. Especially if you're young and you don't have the sort of responsibilities, you can easily pivot to other fields. You can try out sales and like a car salesmanship. You can literally like go to like car dealerships and just be like, hey, I want a job, and they'll usually pick you up. And if you're any good at it, then you know, you'll get money off of it. It's not one of those things that requires like too terribly much to get started in. But usually when people say that they, you know, don't know what to do as far as like breaking into something, and you're right, grinding out certs absolutely is a smart thing to do, especially with IT. Eric, the thing is like IT doesn't demand usually the college degree unless if you're working in a government position, or unless if you're working at like a big a big like Fortune 500 company. You can usually bypass, like if you're working for like any sort of government work, like if you're doing statewide, or if you're doing like school computers, you can usually skirt around that, at least for the first entry thing. They don't actually expect you to have a degree. Like I'm 6 years in IT, and I haven't gotten a degree yet. I've gotten like
Based.
three certificates. But there's definitely an upper limit that the certificates will be able to provide, especially when the certificates start requiring a college degree or equivalent experience. For instance, with like one IT cert, it requires like either 10 years experience or a bachelor's degree. So which one is faster, getting that bachelor's degree or getting the 10 years experience, you know? It's just all about like what's relevant and what's connected. And what a lot of guys are nowadays is that we've abstracted the process of getting a job so much through like Indeed, LinkedIn, all these other services, that finding finding a job that like, you know, you don't like, that you want in the field, you have to go through the actual system that provides not only that abstraction but also that pool of candidates. So I mean, if anybody knows like somebody, or if like their father knows somebody, or they've got a cousin or something like that, and they're just like, hey, I need to get started at work. Usually people can squeeze in an extra person, and especially if you're good, they won't regret that. And like with a lot of people working nowadays, a lot of stuff is just people not doing stuff for a good portion of the day, and this goes all the way up the chain
Yeah.
too. It's not something that just blue collar guys see. It's not something that just white collar guys see. I mean, you see in the welding off season, you see people painting doorways in the shop, you know, sweeping the floors. In IT, if like you've got maybe 20% of the entire company that's actually doing something, and anything else is like, you know, padding.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing too is that um, once you sort of, like you're saying, once you grind these certs. Oh, I just saw somebody. Hello. Oh, Henry Parks, are you there? Okay. Oh, he left. Okay. I was just Henry Parks. I just saw you. If you want to jump back on, I'll add you to the call. But in any case, what was I saying? Grinding certs. Oh yeah. So it would seem to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of these positions, like you were saying, where you need a degree or something, or they want one for certain levels, couldn't you basically just sort of strike out on your own, start your own business, and do that sort of stuff anyways yourself?
I mean, you can always become like a consulting firm, quote unquote, or a consultant, because like people take consulting on like Facebook ads. They take consulting for like marketing strategies. They take consulting for like social media stuff like that. Like there's literally jobs where like if you're good at social media, good at Twitter, like they'll take your follower count, and like if you put that on your resume, that's good enough for them. But if you start like your own business and then like you don't need those certificates, like ultimately a certificate is supposed to be like a sign of competence, like what a college degree used to be. So if you're not competent, then you're not going to be able to perform well. So I mean, yeah, that's always a thing that you can do, is start your own thing. I mean, the question is, of course, always going to be like, what are you going to be providing as a service versus like, you know,
Yeah.
what kind of product are you producing, or like what does your firm do? And a lot of people get caught in the mindset of like, oh well, I'm just like an employee, you know, so I just fall into you know, somebody who is employed at some location. And it's like you can always strike out. I myself am not entrepreneurial. I have never done anything like that, but I figure that, I mean, give me 2 years, specifically building that skill, and I'm sure that I could start a business. I mean, it's one of those things that if you don't have the momentum behind it, or you don't know where to get started, it's going to be significantly harder than if you have somebody who is there. And for anybody who like flat out just doesn't have like any options, sometimes the best course of action is to just, again, get a job, just get a job somewhere. And then usually you can build off of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that was kind of, going back to earlier in the stream, that was sort of the track my brother took. He graduated high school, and then he got a job, and then he got another job, and then he got another job, and he's picking up all these little skills and experience while he's doing it. And some people will say, "Oh, well, you're just stuck as sort of a dead end, whatever position, like it's got no growth potential." But that really hasn't been his experience at all. Like he's really moved up in his career, and he's making more money now, like I said, than a lot of people who do have degrees, and yeah, it is like physical work and stuff, but I mean, he enjoys it and he makes good money at it. And, you know, just getting that first job and then making those connections and that experience, and then sort of eventually getting to the state now where he's become indispensable to the company that he works for, has served him very well. And a lot of people, I think, could do that.
Yeah, if you're hyper competent, then you're always going to find a place wherever you go. And I mean, basic skills are basically like a lot of people's money that they get as like a salary or like what they get paid per hour. A lot of it depends on what kind of skill set they have in their back pockets. Like I don't have a skill set of just, IT if that's my career field. Like I also have like a customer service skill set, or I have a attention to detail skill set, or I have the ability to extrapolate options, new opinions, openness to new opinions and stuff like that. That's also a skill set that you can develop. Being a decent speaker, being able to communicate well, that's also a skill. Being able to sell stuff, that is also a skill. Sales is one of those particularly nasty skills that people don't like to build because it requires, being out of your comfort zone for so for so much of it, because you're going to face rejection, and being faced with rejection over and over again, especially as a career option, is not a fun experience. But still, it's one of those things that you can do, and if you want to like pick up that skill, you can usually start pretty small. You don't actually have to go change jobs to pick up that skill. You can oh, one thing that I think is like actually like a really useful skill for like a lot of people to just do, if they have like the free time or if they have the money, is just like take an improv class or something like that. Not, don't go full theater kid or anything like that, but like
Yeah,
take
never.
yeah, don't never go full theater kid. But if you take up like an improv class or something like that, then it will teach you to be very it will teach you, even if you're introverted, the skills of extroversion. It'll teach you how to pick up on things, how to put things down, how to be funny, how to be witty. And like if you feel like you're like in a bad place, like socially, like you can't like interact with people properly, improv is like one of those things that will at least allow you to get up there. And it'll help you be funny too. And being funny is always a skill that you can take forward with you. So
Oh yeah, definitely. People always like the funny guy. And what you're talking about with in terms of sales, like with most businesses, in my experience and sort of observation, is once you know how to do the work, whatever it is, if you're a mechanic, a carpenter, sealing asphalt, create IT products or whatever, like once you can do that, really your main job after that point is selling. You have the thing, you can do the thing. Now you just need people to buy whatever it is you're making, whatever service you're providing. And then so once you learn the business of what your business is, your main business actually becomes a sales business. So,
yeah,
and that's a valuable skill to have, not only if you start your own enterprise or whatever, but I mean, it really helps you a lot as an employee as well. Because I mean, what are you doing as a prospective employee for something? Like you are selling your skills, you're selling yourself relative to other potential candidates to get a position. And these interpersonal skills, and then like also a good knowledge of sort of how to, sell things, like that's what an interview is. Like you are trying to sell your services to a company, and those are good skills for anybody to have.
yeah, and I don't know. I was thinking, for myself personally, this is more of a personal anecdote. Is I've been feeling very stale with a lot of my skill building in the past year and a half. So I was contemplating actually quitting my job and then moving back down to family, and then being able to and then being able to take that time off to either chase a new cert or to build up a new skill. My father actually had a proposition where he was just like, well, if you want to start flipping houses or start like being landlords, then we can look into that as well. And I'm just like, okay, so as long as you have like additional support behind you, and this is one of the things that I've always carried with me throughout like my entire life, is that I've been blessed to where like no matter how big of a screw up I am or how big of a failure I am, I always know that I've got um, I've got the big man upstairs who's going to be able to help me pick myself up off my feet. So like it's one of those things where it's like you can go into risk a lot easier if you're not like afraid of like the actual risk itself. Like risk
Yeah.
adverse people typically they fall into this thing of like, oh well, this system definitely works out and this system like definitely has like it's like this is the path ahead. And with a lot of like people in the finance sphere, like on like Twitter or whatever, they'll tell you like a lot of this stuff, it's fine to like earn money, but you're essentially going to be working for like your entire life if that's what you're going to be doing. If you're trying to basically get out of that like grind, because there is a difference between like a grind and a build. Because like I don't know, if you're taking like pieces and you're like, if you're like making like a garden, right? You're gonna want to be pruning. You're gonna want to be constantly adding stuff. You're gonna want to be like swapping stuff out. Versus if you're like a factory farm, you know, it's very systematic. You know, you plant the things, you till, or you water and stuff like that. Whereas gardening is basically the same process, but it's very different. It's very deliberate. It's very careful. And um, I mean, people have gardens out there that are absolutely massive, and like they tend to these things, and it takes them like maybe an hour a day to like tend to this thing, and it's just like, whoa, how did you build this up? And it's just like, well, that's really what an hour a day in anything will eventually accumulate to, is something big and great and perfect.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And you're kind of highlighting another thing that I think is important where, in a real sense, family is wealth. Um, and in my own life, that's sort of been uh, one of the things that's made me take a lot more risks, which, most normal people probably wouldn't be comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really is sort of like a backstop, like the ultimate safety net is family. And there's been times, like recently where, like I'm working these jobs or whatever, and then, the oil thing doesn't end up working out. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go back to my original plan and get my master's and then start my career. All right. My lease is running up. Once it runs up, I'm going to cut a deal with my family and then I'll stay with them. That'll get rid of my rent costs while I'm there. And then, when I moved to South Africa, I got in-laws who I could stay with initially while I, get my feet. And then we end up getting our own place. And then when I come back, it's the same story in reverse. And, when I also started like a little groundskeeping, landscaping business. I don't know, in like 2016, I think. And then 2017. And it's like, hey, I'm just going to try it. And I had a job, but, the job was sort of running out of time. And, I was able to get a little bit of help sort of getting started that. And it ended up being profitable and I enjoyed it. And I did it for a couple of years before I had to leave. And, that's always something that I think gets overlooked a lot is there's no provided and they know you're not like taking advantage of a situation and just being a leech or anything, but you're like actually working on something. If you have like a good relationship with your parents or your grandparents or whoever, like they'll be happy to, give you a hand, in a time of need to help you get back on your feet. And recognizing that you have that actually does, I think, help not only relieve stress, but like you're saying, it makes that risk aversion less, or it makes the risk of trying something new less scary, And
Yeah.
you'll go for things that normally you wouldn't. So instead of just being stuck in a job that, you know, you hate, and you do it because you don't have any other better options, like if you have family around, like it can really help make that transition to something else. And that's a great thing. So yeah, family is wealth in that sense, in a very real way.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's not just family too. Like I've sort of stepped outside of the bounds of societal conventions, and I've helped friends out, especially in times of hardship too.
Yeah.
If you're able to, like, you know, spare a person, you know, anywhere between $500 or like 3 months of them living in your basement, then like that's one of those things that like you should be able to provide for people too, especially if you're especially if you're like moderately successful. I feel like
Yeah.
being able to open your home is just, it's one of those things that is so like people just don't realize like that's even an option first off, and like
Yeah.
when you do it, just I've only had good things come out of it.
No, this is a huge point that I think is kind of a problem with sort of our modern age. Is, you know, when people talk about deracination, isolation, and alienation, those are real things. And a lot of them are, I think, self-imposed for the most part. Like, but the culture doesn't really facilitate those sorts of natural um, aspects of mutual aid among friends or whatever. Like it's, and this is where, you know, when it comes to friendships, like being friends and choosing friends who are people you want to be like or become is really important. So if you're just hanging around like, you know, stoners and losers and whatever, like, yeah, these guys might not help you out. But if you cultivate friendships with people who, you know, are like men of honor, who are winning at life, who you respect, who you like, and who you want to emulate to a certain extent, and if you bring something of value to the friendship, and you guys are like legit friends, like, I mean, they won't hesitate to help you, you know.
Right.
Especially if they know your character at that point. Like when I moved back to Alaska, I didn't initially, I had enough money for the plane ticket and whatever, but I didn't have enough money to get all my stuff up here. So I had to, so what I ended up doing was I asked a few of my friends, I'm like, hey, you know, it's a bit of an embarrassing situation, but could you help me out, you know, with these transfer fees, and then I'll pay you back, you know, once I get over here. And they're like, yeah, no, we'll do it. We'll sit down, we'll figure out something. And then they split the cost between them. And then, and it wasn't like a ton of money, but it was money I didn't have at the moment. But then, you know, I came back, and then I paid him back within a month or two, plus a little bit extra, you know, just to, you know, just to be thankful, show my gratitude. And yeah, like if I didn't have that sort of those relationships that I built, you know, it would have been much harder to sort of get my things up here. So yeah, you know, that's another aspect that's really important, is the mutual aid and friendship, and like building real community. And this is kind of where I see, and I've talked about this on my channel before, but one of the things that I think is really important, sort of for like, you know, dissident right characters or just people who get it in general, is recreating these sorts of social bonds and real sense of community to sort of help with these things, because it's so important, not just when you encounter trouble in your own life, but so that you can also be a blessing to other people, you know, and network, and sort of the synergy that comes from like these friendships and stuff. And you get to a point where like not only are you succeeding, but you're helping other people succeed, and they're happy to see you crush, and you're happy to see them crushing, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a really cool thing to see. And I I love to see that. So like whenever I'm scrolling through Twitter or whatever, like just the other day, my South African buddy, Ernst van Sale, he just got engaged and he's like, yeah, she said yes. And we'll be a married man. I'm like, so much winning. I love it. This is great. Like you're crushing. Like keep winning.
Yes, yes.
Or like this other guy, Matthew from Kingpill, like him and his family just got baptized and he had like a bit of a tough move over to Texas and he's trying to start a new career. And I see that. I'm like, yes, so much winning. He's crushing. This is great. Like, I love it. And I want to see more of our guys doing that. Like the age of the based NEET, the age of the based incel is over. Like embrace winning. Like that's what I want,
Well, right. And like in order to be a winner, you actually have to, act like it, and you have to be going out there and doing stuff like that. And you have to, there has to be an openness to experiences as well. When the esteemed Paul Fahrenheit was making his traversal across the entire continental United States, I put him up for a night because he just needed a place to stay. And that's not something that, a whole lot of people would be open to,
Yeah.
Like, this guy's a weird Substack writer and he's a Twitter personality. And it's just like, well, he talks about base things, so he's probably not going to kill everybody,
Yeah.
There's just so much social trust that's completely not there. You have to be able to like throw it, like give people a little bit of charity too, and as long as it's not something horrific that happens to you, I mean, it's a very edifying and growing experience. And even if something doesn't work out, I mean, I've lost $3,000 to a friend of mine before that I didn't really get back. It's like, even if it's a situation that you'd rather not be a part of like that, it's still an important lesson. And I mean, yeah, the friend who lost like that money that I had, it wasn't fun. It wasn't good. It wasn't positive in the moment. And like, but I took it as like an opportunity to like, let things go, even if it is a large sum of money. But
Yeah.
but I'm getting sort of sidetracked here when it comes to career stuff, but
Well,
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's all interconnected, to be honest. It's
Mhm,
the whole what do you want to do with your life thing. I mean,
mhm.
it's
Who do
all
you want to
tied.
be?
Yeah, it's who do you want to be? And this is something that I've from a young age, um, I've never been, and I think in the West, like there's this emphasis on like what do you want to do with your life is like a job, and that's it. Like I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a whatever. And for me, it's always been exactly what you said. Like, who do I want to be? What do I want my life to look like?
Mhm,
And a job is one element of that, or a business is one element of that, but it's not who I am, right? Like
right.
the vision of what my life is, a job is like a means of facilitating that. And it's part of, how I find value in the world and, create value for other people. And that's good. But it's also, it's not the whole picture. So like for me, from an early age, like what do I want my life to look like was, I want to be married. I want to have children. I want to have my own house. I want to help other people. I want to do a career that I find enjoyable and rewarding and, is valuable. And now I want to basically grow my skills and my income to basically help out with sort of mission work in sort of my area and sort of expand, make Alaska Orthodox again is
Mhm.
basically the goal.
Yeah.
And, all these little facets are important things which comprise what a good life is, I think. And, community and mutual aid and finding friends who support each other and what they're doing, and, celebrate, your victories together. Like all that's really awesome, beautiful stuff. And, it's not as simple as I'm going to become X and do that. And I think that's where a lot of people get unhappy in their life and depressed, is they think I'm going to do the job and then that's it. And then they actually do it and that's all they have. And then they're like, wow, I'm really depressed and unhappy. Like,
Yeah, it's like you've got your job, now what do you have to show for it?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting too, because like, I mean, you'll have people who have this disillusionment with their jobs and stuff like that, and I think that comes partially from well, it can come from two things, and they both stem sort of from the same problem. The problem being is that we don't have a good teleology in America, especially in the public education system, with like what
Right.
what do you do, why do you do it, the teleology, what is the purpose of man. And because they don't have that teleology, it gets a lot easier to fall into like, oh well, what my purpose is my job. Or you have the other side of that where they say, oh well, nothing matters, and instead I'll become a NEET. I've got several brothers who like don't see the point of like even getting a job, because like, I mean, ultimately, if you look at the status of circumstances that, the entire West is in, it's like, well, why would I get a job? Why would I want to get taxed by these people? Why would I want to contribute to this society? And it's like, well, those are all bad things, yes, but bad those are the bad set of circumstances that you need to overcome. And when asked like, oh well, why do I need to overcome it, I mean, they usually don't, they're not able to provide an answer for that. And well, even they'll ask the question, well, why should I try to overcome that sort of thing? And it's just like, well, the teleology behind man is to be able to be a creative force in the world. And if you're not a creative force in the world, then you're functionally going to be miserable, because that's not how you're designed as a human. That's how like, humans are designed to be creative. So I don't know. It's that sort of non-teleology that they get from the public education system, which I at this point, like, yeah, the education system isn't going to provide any reason why or how. They're barely teaching you like even true like facts. Even they can't even provide a coherent narrative of history or how to do anything except for like maybe algebra. But
Yeah.
even then, it was interesting because I found, and this is sort of a tangent, I found a book of like, it was something like along the lines of like why we do calculus or something like that, or the beginner's uh, the true beginner's guide to calculus. It was something like that. But basically what it was is like, okay, so calculus, it's a bunch of squiggly numbers and like nobody cares about it. And like it doesn't actually show anything useful in people's lives because it's calculus, unless you start taking these presuppositional foundations of like, well, why is it the way that it is? Or like, why does a particular thing function? What is the pattern of how creation manifests itself? And then once you get into it from that idea, sometimes it gets a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, that's totally 100% true. The yeah, this idea of telos, like purpose to things, purpose to life, the function of various human endeavors, is totally lost on this latest generation. And I think a lot of that is, it might be by design, I'm not sure, or I think it is sort of by design, because the idea is that if there is a purpose to sort of things, if there is a way of being, what that's doing is it's putting constraints on people, and that's bad.
Right.
So,
I mean, I don't think if it is on purpose, if that matters. Purpose or like intention behind something doesn't change the fact that it is. And you know, Christians always have the ability to say, well, it's the plan of the devil. And it usually that works quite well as explanatory power, especially if you can't point to somebody specific. But I mean, unless if you can point to somebody specific, then things get interesting if you can. Like, but that's, whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just running through some comments here. I'm going to tie this off here in a little bit so I can go help out the family with some food. Let's see. People should consider agriculture. I'm only turning 30 this month and am already a farm manager with a wage that can comfortably support my wife and 4 kids. Must be nice, James. Sounds like you're crushing. That's very good.
That's good. That's good.
We love it. We love it. We love to see it. We love to see it. Maybe I'll just do like another stream at some point. Like next time I do a call-in stream, I'll try to advertise it a bit more in advance, and then we could just have people come in and say how they're winning at life.
Yeah. This is the winning stream. Tell us how you're winning at life. Tell where you're not winning. How would you like to win more?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a great idea. Host it like a game show.
Yeah. Who's the biggest winner? Yeah, and then everyone talks about how they're winning, and then we have to vote who's winning the most.
Vote in the comments below. All right. Well, I mean, great. I don't want to keep you. Thanks for having me on, even if it was for like a little bit. God bless and have a good rest of your day.
Likewise, you too, man. Have a good one. Oh, we got one extra caller coming in. Talk to Mr. Henry Parks before we tie this off. How are you doing, Henry?
Yeah, g'day yourself.
Doing very good. Just enjoying this cold spring weather and getting ready to
You mean
to have a barbecue with the family.
You mean autumn?
Yeah. I guess your hemisphere. Yeah.
No, I'm just calling in. I was just listening into the stream just out of interest while I tried knocking some cheap work off at the aforementioned institution I'm currently going to. So it's almost half listening in, half contemplating whether to join the stream. So it's kind of just listening in the background. But no. It's good that I've been able to come on a call-in stream. Been listening for quite a while. But my main thing was just where am I going in life? How can I win more?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a question many of us are asking ourselves. Like I was sort of talking with Jay Ford sort of at the end, kind of jokingly, but kind of seriously, is like maybe next time I do a call-in stream, I'll try to advertise it a bit more in advance, and we could just have various people call in and discuss sort of how they're winning and how can they win more. Like, I think that would be fun and a good conversation. So for you, if I remember from the comments correctly, you said that you're currently attending college and you're
uni, but I'm using American terms, so like
uni.
And part of the good thing about where I live is that it's sort of it's not totally foreign, but it's a semi-foreign concept to move away for uni/college. So you tend to get, your parents generally support you through, or if not, you're living like pretty close by, because the whole concept of like college and uni here is kind of different. You don't get, even the debt concept is kind of different. Essentially what happened back in the 90s is that the government didn't make college free, but basically put an interest limit on the total amount of debt you have, to the point where it's stupidly cheap to go to college. So you'd be an idiot not to take it. At the same time, it means a bunch of people get $100,000 in debt and don't really have to pay it off, which means we have a bunch of people doing a bunch of useless degrees, and it's contributing to the downfall of our society in general. But there's kind of this attitude of, you'd be a fool not to take it. But at the same time, I've spoken to people who did drop out and then ended up going to trade school, and they're just having an awesome time. They're doing work that I went to uni because I wanted to do it, so to speak. There's almost kind of this air of indoctrination at school that, you go to uni as kind of your trade school entrance, where they treated uni like a trade school. You go to uni to get a job, as opposed to looking to kind of alternate paths. It's almost kind of this, I don't know, air of indoctrination, which I sort of fell into.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of people. You know, it's it sort of becomes the default choice, right? You know, in the same way that like apprenticing under your parents back, 200-300 years ago was the default choice. Now it's college, and I'm not sure which one. I'm not
Which
so
one is? Yeah. No,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
I'm not so sure that the latter option for most people is the superior choice, but it is what it is. But are you planning like on sticking with your degree, or do you have like pretty good job prospects? Do you think you'll be able to do what you want to do on the back end, or not?
Yeah, I think I've like after because I do eng, so it's not a completely useless skill set. So it's not like I'm going and doing business for the sake of doing business at uni or anything. But it's more the fact that it seems like a dragging away. The classes seem designed in order to cater to the lowest common denominator, and there's not really any room for kind
Yeah.
of growth in that environment. I find that there's more growth in actually going out and practically doing things than there is in sitting through a class about learning about XYZ tool, XYZ mathematical method to solve ABC problem. So it's more a question of inefficiency. It's a really inefficient way to learn things, and they string it out deliberately in order to try and sucker as much money from people as possible. It seems, but at the same time, paradoxically, it's also necessary to get a job in the field that I'm going into because you need a degree to actually get there. So yeah, it feels like it's more of a drag than anything else. There's a part of me that just wishes I just went straight into the industry and just started, learning and doing things as opposed to just learning a bunch of theory that I'm never actually going to use.
Yeah, no, that's if I think about my own, like I have 2 degrees, a bachelor's and a master's degree. And from that, like the things that I actually remember from those degrees is actually quite small. And the amount that I do remember that actually applies to my job is even smaller. So yeah, it's just a college university is really just kind of a signaling device these days. It's not I think some people say college has always been like this. I don't think so. I think college did used to be a much more serious place for serious people who want to do serious things. Um, and what it's sort of done is kind of edged out traditional ways of getting employment and taking them over and sort of, like we said, kind of become the default way with which people credential and sort of get their experience, so called. And I think that's a real shame, and there's no reason why so many of these jobs need to require a college degree. Like my grandparents both were just high school graduates who ended up becoming significant people within an organization within the oil industry. And now if you wanted that job, like if you wanted to be at their level today, and I think they only retired around like 2002 or something, but if you wanted to have that job today, you need like a BA from somewhere, you need an MBA from a different institution, and all these credentials, which they just learned by starting out low in the company and then through competence and experience working their way up. And yeah, it's sad to see that actually. Like, I mean, it shouldn't be like this, but it kind of is what it is. So
Yeah. No, I totally get you. And it was interesting. Yesterday, I was coming home from church after my first communion, and I got a lift from a bloke who started doing civil engineering back in the 70s. And essentially the way he started was just going through almost kind of like not even an undergrad course, but kind of just night courses. And part of like his whole experience was designing the passion project that he wanted to take on, which was the cathedral that I now attend. It's actually one of the larger cathedrals in the Southern Hemisphere, which is, in terms of the in terms of the Orthodox faith, that is, it's kind of a new, outside the Greeks, it's a new kind of sphere here anyway. And then another example is my grandparents, who my grandfather got a job at his father's firm that he started as a customs agent just straight out of high school, and he ended up learning all that in the job. And yeah, these days you'd need several degrees in accounting in order to actually get to that position.
Yeah, totally. No, it's kind of an ass backwards way of doing things, to be honest. And the opportunity cost aspect of it too, like I was talking about with the other guy who called in, is something which is very much overlooked but very real. And the good thing though is, I think for a lot of people, with most people in most professions, is there are ways I think you can sort of get around that. But yeah, no, it's an interesting problem. But hopefully, and it sounds like, thankfully, in your position, you've got sort of a decent track going for you, so that by the time you get out of it, you'll hopefully be able to do what you want to do without too much heartache and too much foregone money. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, but the only problem is I'm stagnating, I suppose. And when I say that, I mean in terms of skill set. I mean, the institutional capture is one thing. And like, I go to a uni that is particularly under the influence of institutional capture. Thankfully, in my field, people don't usually think about it, and I've never had to deal with it, aside from that. It's funny. There's kind of two wings at our uni. There's the humanities side and the STEM side, and there's a bridge. Train bridge kind of between the two, and you can kind of tell when you've walked into the other's territory. It's kind of like the Berlin Wall, and there's a bunch of flags of the Frankfurt School. You know what I'm talking about. Frankfurt School, I suppose, what boomers would call wokeness.
Yeah.
On one side, and just the grey dreg buildings on the other. But yeah, no, the main issue is more just skill set stagnation. I put so much effort and time into a bunch of useless tasks, of which I'm not really learning or doing anything either new. And yeah, it does stagnate. It does stagnate your skills after a while. And the problem is that I have two outs. I can either let my grades suffer and just learn skills, a wider array of skill sets, in which case that sinks GPA. And GPA is it's not the be all and end all, but it's kind of life insurance if you want to at least get into a company. Or I can focus on the core units of what I want to do, and then go to a job with no practical experience. So I suppose the question I'm really asking myself is, what gambit do I want to run? Do I just want to follow what the classes are doing, or just kind of defect, go to what people are doing in terms of just interesting stuff, even on campus, and just let the institutional side of my let the institutional side suffer? I suppose that's the question. But yeah, it's a question of stagnation, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I definitely felt that when I was getting my master's, especially. Like, so much of it just felt like a waste. And fortunately, there was like one or two classes where I was like, okay, I'm actually like kind of doing what I'm going to be doing once I get out of here, which was nice. But yeah, a lot of it is just not useful, frankly. And they try to gussy it up like it is, but it ain't. So anyways, now you mentioned unrelated to work, but related to what do you want to do with your life. You mentioned that you just had your first communion in the Orthodox Church. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that was yesterday. So we're a day ahead. But yeah, no. I suppose that's been the one thing that's continuing to drive me forward, I suppose. Mainly, I mean, yeah, I grew up in a heterodox household, Baptist, and then moved on during the Kufid years because fortunately here both our Serbian and our Rokor diocese are pretty good. Funnily enough, we only actually have one bishop for each, I believe. I don't know about the Serbs, but definitely for Rokor, we have one bishop for each for the entire subcontinent. So, and they were very good during the Kufid years. I had mates in Rokor going back through 5 years back that I talked to them about orthodoxy, here and there, and didn't really take them seriously until probably, I don't know, 2 years ago when I started properly inquiring. So yeah, it's been a 2-year journey, but I don't know. At the moment, I feel like it's a bigger. I feel like that part of my life has been a bigger aspect of my life than my career aspirations, which I suppose is good. But yeah, no. First communion yesterday, baptized on Monday. I'm feeling okay.
That's great, front. Man. Oh, that's really cool. And yeah, that's kind of how we started the stream off with, was like, the sort of spiritual transformation that I've sort of gone through seemed more important relative to like other things in my life than, and yeah, no, it's just a interesting change. And I think a lot of us, have kind of, and for me, like, because Alaska has the history it does and the demographics that it does, like Orthodoxy has always kind of been on my radar in a way that it's not been for like most of the West, I guess. But I never really like inquired or took it seriously until I was quite a bit older. And, just looking at something authentic, I guess. And was that kind of your thing? You said COVID, like the contrast between, I guess, the Orthodox in your area's response to COVID versus the others. Was that kind of what got you interested, or what?
Yeah, no, I was interested before all of this kind of happened. I suppose kind of because where I live, we have a large Greek community, and I grew up around them, but generally didn't really take them that seriously because I don't know, westernized. I know that's kind of tarring a broad brush, but that's how I viewed it. Kind of as a niche ethnic club, so I wasn't really considering it at the time. I was sort of a Baptist non-denom kind of not in a sectarian sort of way. I was kind of a denominational live and let live. I wasn't sectarian about Protestantism or anything. But no, I had peaking interest. Like I remember asking Dad in the car coming back from a youth hangout at my Baptist church when I was probably around when I was younger, and I asked him like, why would heaven be like interesting? Because I thought, okay, there's only so long you can kind of be there before you've kind of explored everything. I know it's kind of a simplistic question, but he started talking about all this eschatological kind of these different eschatological views, and one of them that he brought up was theosis, and that kind of stuck in my mind. The other book he recommended me to read, which I actually attribute to my conversion, or at least my initial peaking interest, not even an Orthodox book, was The Great Divorce by Lewis, which kind of made me.
Book, by the way,
yeah, I've found Lewis's non-Narnian fiction corpus to be really good. Like the Space Trilogy for me, I think was the Space Trilogy, especially that last book, That Hideous Strength, I think is probably the best work of fiction in that genre for that decade. I think it's better than both 1984 and Brave New World. But yeah, no, Lewis's understanding of what the eschaton was and how it worked kind of on a personalistic sort of level, as opposed to this kind of impersonal sort of process that had kind of run roughshod through a lot of Protestant theology. I don't know if you're familiar with Gerstner. I don't know if you...
Sorry, I was just looking out the window. No, I'm not. I have not read Goethe, no.
No, Gerstner. He's kind of just Protestant theologian, and he was talking about Karl Barth and a lot of liberal Protestantism, and he summed it up really well when he said, a lot of what liberal Protestants say is that there is no God and Christ is his son. And so it felt very impersonal. I think Lewis's thing made that impact about personalism in terms of theology a lot more vivid and real, and so that predisposed me to a lot of orthodox theology. And then over COVID, I had a lot of crap happen in my life and started reading into it. And then about a year after that all happened, I reconnected with my mate at school, and he invited me over to his church. And 2 years after that, I got baptized, and now I'm here.
Based. Love to see it.
Sorry, I rambled.
No, that's awesome. No, that's exactly what I was asked. I find these stories interesting. I really do. And it's kind of the reason why I wanted to sort of dabble with this call-in stream thing and sort of see what happens. Cause it's the sort of life experience of people, I think anyone can learn from, and it's illuminating, I find, and I enjoy it. And I just like talking to people and, just getting to know the audience a little bit. Like I have many people who've, listened to this channel for quite some time and, never really interacted with them. They're just viewer number 27 on like, a video I put out or whatever. So I don't know. I find it's really cool.
Yeah, I actually picked you up first. I don't know even how why it popped up in my feed, but it was the Libertarianism is Feminism for Men stream, and that was when I was coming out of my libertarian phase.
Oh yeah, just the stream you needed at that point.
Oh yeah, that was just the stream I needed for just the time. I consider it God's providence. It's kind of like Orthodox Pilgrim or Ephraim.
Yes.
Yeah, back when he had a channel, I remember I was watching Academic Agent, and it just so happened that as COVID was hitting, that was the stream there was a stream with him and Orthodox Pilgrim on I don't know if you remember, but there was a cross-Christian kind of denominational.
Yeah, the round table. Yeah, that was actually, I was originally going to be the Orthodox guy on that on that round table, but he ended up double booking it, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, like we're going to have Orthodox Pilgrim on." And I'm glad he did, though. I think he did a better job of describing orthodoxy than I would have. So that was good. He was on there.
Yeah, no, I attribute him as the start of my inquiry. So it was about March 2020. So yeah, no, that was even before I'd like reconnected with the people I used to debate back, because I went to a Christian school. Like if these topics didn't come up all the time, but they occasionally came up. But yeah, no. I attribute that as the start of my like inquiry, even though I didn't go to a church for like a year and after that point. But yeah, no. That stream in the libertarianism, I found you from the Libertarianism Feminism for Men just as I was coming out. When was that stream? It was sometime in 21, I think. 2021. I'm trying to retrace my steps.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I did that. I did that with. I should actually have him back on the show sometime.
I don't know where he's gone though, Scott Tungay. I don't know where he's kind of gone.
Yeah, Scott Tungay. I know he kind of rebranded and he's doing some stuff with his wife, or was. Let me go back. When did I do that? That was a while ago. Yeah, that was June 4th, 2021.
Yeah, okay. So that would have been like midway through me attending the church that I was attending. And he's the I suppose the other thing that affected my conversion from that period is that I went to church occasionally, but this was during when we had lockdown limits. And I don't know if you remember, like Australia was kind of like a lockdown central, but particularly the state I was in. The mate that I was the mate that had basically introduced me to Rocore was actually hosting like services in the park on Thursday nights. And that was the only, because I was still kind of like attached to my Baptist church, but they were doing online services and all that, and pretty lame, to be honest. It felt good to like get. It felt good simultaneously to be inquiring and to get back at the establishment. so to speak, by just, you know, having a bunch of mates and like doing reader services out in the woods. But
Oh,
yeah, no.
That's way better than online church, quote
Oh
unquote.
yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no. So yeah, no. It was a year after that, and then yeah, no. So that's where I am, I suppose. If I go on any longer, I'll start like going into like the specific literature I read, and going into all the different like rabbit holes I fell into, the different books that I can contribute to my conversion. But more than anything else, it was more like it was a spiritual conversion. Like there's only so much you can do of kind of like pseudo scholasticism or pseudo, not downplaying scholasticism or anything. Obviously the intellect has its place. We're not Apollinarians, but yeah, no, the just the spiritual conversion and the community itself, I think more than anything else, like really affected my conversion. The people there were authentic, and it was weird because every time growing up, Orthodoxy was just associated with ethnic enclaves of nominals.
Right.
Just to be honest, it's what everyone kind of ascribed to it. It's weird actually being in that community now, and then looking back and like seeing all the like slander, like certain groups of prots would heap on like these more liturgical traditions of like ethnics being nominals, et cetera, especially in my case or my state's case.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It was, it was. I'm also very fortunate that the church I go to is not staffed with nominals.
No, certainly.
And it's you really do sort of see the difference, I think, when you actually try to live that, you know, the fullness of the truth through the Orthodox traditions and with the sacraments and stuff. It really is kind of life-changing in a way that's hard to describe. Like you're still you, obviously, but you really do sort of feel a change and like how you respond to things and the different how you think about things and sort of it's just it's hard to put into words, but like the more you do it, it's the more profound effect it has on you, I'd say. But anyways, I guess that'll be it for today, man. I'm just looking outside. I think the family's ready to get some food on. So this will be it. Thank you everybody for calling in. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on, Henry. It was nice to meet you, man.
No problem. Next call, if you have a call in stream down the future, I mean, I'd be down. Maybe when we both have a bit more time. But no, it's been great.
Absolutely, and special thanks also to Jay Ford and Firefox for jumping on. So that was I was worried I wouldn't have anyone come in, but three good callers. That was awesome, and I enjoyed all of it. And again, if you guys enjoyed this stream, be sure to give it a like for the algorithm, helps out. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Patriarch out.